The night fell over the quiet town like a blanket woven with forgotten whispers. The air held a stillness so heavy that even the trees refused to move, their branches frozen in the silence of something waiting, something that did not wish to be found. There was a faint smell of rain somewhere distant, and the echo of church bells melted into the fog as if they were afraid to announce the hour too loudly. In that moment a girl named Alara sat by her window, her fingers trembling as she held a letter that was meant to cross miles and years and hearts. She had written it under the weight of words that could no longer stay silent, and yet as she looked at the folded paper it felt heavier than the world itself. The candle beside her flickered and stretched her shadow long across the wall. It seemed to move on its own, breathing with her fear. She whispered to the night that she would send it tomorrow. She promised herself this time the truth will travel. She would let her words find him, the man who vanished before dawn one morning, leaving behind only a ring and a silence that screamed louder than thunder. Outside, the world sighed as if it understood her hesitation. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then with the rhythm of old memories against the window. She closed her eyes and saw his face again, not clear, just pieces, his smile in fragments, his voice fading through the fog like a tune she once knew by heart. She remembered the morning he left, the way the light fell on his back as he walked away. She remembered how she waited every day by the same road, how the sky changed colors but he never returned, and so she began to write every night. A piece of her heart spilled on the page, and now this was the last letter, the one she thought would end it, the one she thought would bring peace. But the night had other plans. Something ancient moved through the walls, a whisper too faint to name, and when she turned she saw nothing, yet the candle trembled harder. She placed the letter on the table, tied it gently with a red thread as if binding her own pulse, and left it there waiting for morning. The room felt colder, as though someone had opened a door to the wind. She thought she heard footsteps but no one was there. The sound came again, soft, slow, deliberate. Her breath caught. She rose and stepped toward the window. There outside beneath the dripping trees stood a figure, not close enough to see but near enough to know it watched her. She wanted to scream, yet no sound left her throat. The rain swallowed her voice, and when she blinked the figure was gone, leaving only a trail of wet footprints that led nowhere. The night stretched on, her heart beat like thunder inside her ribs. She lit another candle, though the first had not gone out. Something about the flame made her feel safe. It danced gently as if whispering, "Stay awake." She sat beside the table again, eyes on the letter. Its paper glowed under the candlelight, pale and trembling as though alive. She wondered if he would ever read it, if it would ever reach him, if it could cross the distance between the living and the memory of the dead. She did not know when the first tear fell, only that it blurred the ink and turned her words into rivers. She pressed her hand over the paper, trying to save them, as if pressing could hold back the loss. By morning the rain had stopped. The world smelled of wet earth and quiet dawn. She stepped outside barefoot, the air sharp against her skin. The postman was walking down the lane whistling softly, and she hurried to meet him, clutching the letter close to her chest. Her voice shook as she handed it over, saying, "Please make sure this reaches him." He smiled, not knowing what weight he carried in his satchel, not knowing some letters are never meant to arrive. She watched him walk away until his figure became small and the red thread disappeared from sight. She turned back toward her home and for a moment thought she heard someone whisper her name from behind, but when she turned only the wind greeted her. That day she moved through the hours like someone underwater, everything slow, distant, unreal. She tried to read, she tried to sew, she tried to forget, but the silence of her small house felt louder than ever. Each creak of the floorboard sounded like footsteps, every shadow seemed to lean closer. By evening the sky bled orange and gold, and she thought maybe tonight will be different, maybe peace will come, but peace never visits those who send words to the dead. As night returned, so did the weight inside her chest. She sat once more by the window, waiting as though expecting an answer, and when the clock struck midnight something outside her door began to tap, tap, soft at first, then louder. She froze, the candle quivered, her heart echoed the sound. The tapping did not stop, it came again, steady, unhurried, like a knock that knew she was listening. Her breath turned shallow, her fingers gripped the edge of the chair. She told herself it was only the wind, only the branches swaying, but there were no trees close enough to touch her door. The sound grew softer now, almost polite, like someone asking to be let in. She rose slowly, each step she took made the floor sigh beneath her feet. She reached for the handle, her heart whispering no, but her hand whispering yes. She opened it just enough to see the dark. Nothing waited there, only rain dripping from the roof and the faint smell of smoke. She stepped outside, her nightdress clinging to her skin, the air cold enough to taste. When she looked down she saw it lying on the doorstep, the same letter tied with the same red thread, damp from the rain as if it had walked home by itself. Her throat tightened. The letter was supposed to be gone. The postman was supposed to carry it far away. Her mind spun. She picked it up slowly. The ink had bled even more. Her words twisted into shadows. She could hardly read them. She whispered his name once, maybe twice, and something in the air moved like a sigh. She went inside, shut the door, locked it, then locked it again. She sat by the fire, though the flames gave no warmth. The paper trembled in her hands, and then she saw it, something new written beneath her words, a line she never wrote. I never left, it said. Her breath caught. Her pulse turned to ice. She stared, unable to move, unable to think. Her mind clawed for reason, for anything that could make sense, but there was nothing. She placed the letter on the table and stepped back. She whispered again, "Who's there?" The silence answered like an echo from the grave. Then the candle beside her flickered and died. She stood in darkness. Only the faint glow of the embers touched her face. She felt the air shift behind her, soft and cold, like someone breathing too close. She turned fast, her heart hammering, but no one was there, only the outline of her shadow trembling on the wall. Yet it was not hers anymore. It moved when she did not. It stretched taller, longer, until it touched the ceiling. Her body froze. Her voice refused to obey. She backed away, but the shadow followed step for step. Her hands reached blindly for the table. Her fingers brushed the edge of the letter, and the moment she touched it, the shadow stopped. A sound filled the room, faint, like paper tearing. She looked down. The red thread had come loose. The letter unfolded on its own. Its pages fluttered, though there was no wind. She could see more writing appearing, the ink rising from nowhere as if an invisible hand wrote in front of her. I tried to return, the words formed. I tried to come back, but you sealed the door. I watched you wait. I called your name. I never left. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run, but her body felt heavy as stone. Her mind flooded with the memory of his last morning, how she had locked the door after their fight, how she refused to open it when he came back, pounding, shouting her name, how silence had fallen after and never lifted again. She sank to her knees, the letter falling open beside her, the ink bleeding like a wound. The night pressed closer, whispering against the walls, every sound now alive. The ticking of the clock became a heartbeat, the creak of the floor a sigh. She thought she saw a figure in the corner near the window, a blur of movement, a man or the ghost of one, his face unclear, but his voice she knew it like the rhythm of her own pulse. "Alara," he said softly, "you never sent it, you never let me go." She closed her eyes, tears spilling like rain. "I tried," she whispered, "I swear I tried." His voice came again, lower, now heavier. "I waited by the road, I waited by the sea. The letter never reached me because you never forgave me." She wanted to speak, but the air stole her words. The figure moved closer, his outline flickering in and out of the dark as though woven from smoke. When she opened her eyes fully, he stood before her, pale eyes glimmering with something between sorrow and blame. His hands were empty, yet she felt the weight of them on her shoulders, cold as frost. She whispered, "Forgive me," but the word broke apart before it left her lips. He looked down at the letter, then back at her, and in that gaze she felt years unraveling like thread from an old coat. All the waiting, all the silence, all the things she had written but never sent, they flooded the room until she thought she would drown. He leaned close and whispered, "One last thing, the letter must burn, only then will the silence end." Then he was gone. The air went still. The candle relit itself, though she never touched it, and she was alone. She stared at the letter, its paper now dry, its ink still dark as though freshly written. She could hear faint sounds outside the window, the rain starting again, the world breathing its old rhythm. She knew what she had to do, though fear held her trembling. She lifted the letter with both hands, carried it to the fire. The flames licked eagerly at its edges. She hesitated for a heartbeat, the memory of his voice still tangled in her mind. Then she let go. The paper curled, blackened, the red thread turned to ash. The room filled with a faint scent of smoke and something else, something like relief. She thought it was over, but as the fire died she saw something gleaming in the ashes, a ring, the same one he had left behind years ago. She stared at the ring lying among the ashes, its golden circle still warm as though it had never left his hand. Her breath trembled out in small clouds, the firelight soft against her face. She reached for it slowly. The air felt heavier, thicker, like time itself held its breath. The moment her fingers touched the metal, a pulse rippled through her skin. She heard his voice again, faint like a memory carried through fog. "Alara," he whispered, and the walls seemed to echo it. Her eyes filled with tears, but she did not look away. The ring pulsed once more and then grew cold, lifeless. She closed her hand around it, and the silence returned, deep, endless, absolute. She sat there until the fire died to embers, until dawn slipped through the window painting the room in grey light. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, pale eyes hollow, and yet something inside them had changed. There was peace maybe, or something close to it. She rose quietly, moving as if in a dream. The house no longer felt hostile, only empty. She went to the door, opened it and stepped outside. The air smelled clean, new, the sky washed clear from the long night. She walked to the old oak at the edge of the garden where he once carved the names into the bark, the letters still there though faded by rain and time. She knelt, placed the ring beneath the roots, whispered thank you, and for the first time in years her voice did not tremble. A soft wind moved through the leaves as if answering her, and she thought she saw a shadow pass across the grass, light and fleeting like a smile. She turned back toward the house, ready to leave the past buried, but as she reached the steps she noticed something resting on the porch, a folded piece of paper tied again with the same red thread. Her heart stopped for a breath. She bent down, picked it up. The paper was dry, untouched by the morning dew, her name written on the front in the same hand she had seen form in the dark. She opened it slowly, afraid of what it might say. The ink shimmered faintly as though alive, the words simple yet heavy, I forgive you, it said, and beneath them a small mark of a ring pressed into the page. Her tears came quietly now, soft and tired. She folded the letter, placed it near her heart and closed her eyes. A warmth spread through her chest, not fear, not sorrow, but something like release. She felt him there for a moment, close enough to touch, and then he was gone, leaving only the whisper of peace behind. She looked to the horizon, the sun rising like a promise, and for the first time she smiled, truly smiled. The wind lifted her hair and carried it away as though brushing off the last dust of grief. She turned toward the road where the postman walked again today, his whistle light and careless. She waved to him, this time not to send anything, not to chase what was gone, but to greet the morning, to begin again. Inside the house the walls felt different, lighter. The shadows no longer reached out, they rested quietly in their corners. The table where the letter once lay was bare except for a single petal from the garden. She did not remember bringing it in. She picked it up, held it to her lips and placed it on the window sill. The world outside glowed soft gold, the kind of light that forgives everything. She whispered his name one last time, not to call him back but to let him go, and in that whisper she felt the last of the weight leave her. As she walked through the house she saw the door slightly open, the same door she had once locked, the same door that held so much sorrow. She did not close it this time, she left it open wide for the wind, for the light, for the echoes that would fade with the day. She sat by the window once more, watching the sky shift its colors, the sound of birds returning after long silence. She remembered the way his laughter used to fill this space, and for a brief instant it came again, faint but clear like a final gift. She whispered softly to the empty room, you reached me after all. And somewhere beyond the veil where memory ends and dreams begin, a man stood by a quiet road, the morning mist curling around his feet. He looked toward the house, smiled and whispered thank you, then he turned, walked into the light. The letter at last delivered, the silence at last broken, and the story of Alara and her lost love dissolved into the calm hum of the waking world, a tale carried not by words but by the wind, by the heart that never forgot, and by the letter that never reached yet somehow found its way home.